You're looking at your bank statement from last month. Everything feels fine: groceries, utilities, the usual stuff. But then you notice you spent $840 more than you planned. Nothing extravagant, just living. You're 3 years into retirement, and that nagging question keeps showing up: how long can I actually keep doing this? Most people think retirement planning is about having enough money saved up. But here's what I learned after 2 decades in investment banking. Retirement isn't about the number in your account on the day you stop working. It's about whether that number can support the actual life you want to live, month after month, year after year, without that sick feeling in your stomach every time you check your balance. My name is David Harrington. I spent over 2 decades as an investment banking analyst and portfolio strategist, navigating market cycles, recessions, and financial bubbles. After stepping away from institutional finance, I now focus on helping everyday people, especially those approaching or enjoying retirement, understand money in a calm, practical way. Before we continue, a quick note. This isn't financial advice. Everyone's situation is different. Think of this as education to help you ask better questions and make calmer decisions. By the end of this video, you'll understand what it really costs to maintain your lifestyle in retirement. Not the theoretical numbers financial advisors show you in their projections, but the real, everyday expenses that determine whether you're living comfortably or constantly worried. And more importantly, you'll know how to think about this in a way that helps you sleep better at night. If you find this helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button. It helps me reach more people who need this kind of straightforward financial education. And turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos. Now, let's talk about what maintaining a lifestyle actually means when you're no longer bringing home a paycheck. The financial services industry loves to talk about replacement ratios. They'll tell you that you need 70% or 80% of your pre-retirement income to maintain your lifestyle. It sounds scientific. It sounds precise. And for most people, it's completely disconnected from reality. Here's what they're not telling you. Your lifestyle costs what it costs. Not 70% of something. Not 80% of something. It costs actual dollars for actual things in your actual life. And those costs don't automatically drop by 20% or 30% just because you turned 65 and stopped going to an office. Think about your monthly expenses right now. Your mortgage or rent, that didn't change when you retired. Your property taxes, those went up, not down. Your homeowner's insurance, your utilities, your car payment or car maintenance, all still there. Your groceries cost the same whether you're working or retired. Gas prices don't give you a retirement discount. Now here's where it gets interesting. Some expenses do drop. You're not commuting 5 days a week anymore. You're not buying work clothes or spending money on professional appearance. You're not grabbing lunch out or coffee on the way to the office. So yes, some things cost less, but other things cost more. A lot more. And this is the part that catches people off guard. Your healthcare costs just went up. Even with Medicare, you're paying premiums for supplemental coverage. You're paying for prescriptions. You're paying dental and vision out of pocket because Medicare doesn't cover those. You're paying copays and deductibles that add up faster than you expected. Let me give you real numbers. The average retiree on Medicare spends around $5,000 to $7,000 a year on healthcare costs that aren't covered. That's $400 to $600 a month. And that's average. If you have chronic conditions or need regular prescriptions, you're looking at more. Then there's the thing nobody talks about in those neat retirement projections. You have more time now. More time means more opportunities to spend money. Not necessarily on extravagant things, just on life. You go out to breakfast with friends more often because you can. That's $15 here, $20 there. You take that weekend trip to visit your grandkids because you're not limited to vacation days anymore. That's gas, maybe a hotel, definitely meals out. You finally have time for that hobby you always wanted, whether it's golf, woodworking, gardening, photography. Those hobbies cost money. You're home more, which means you're using more electricity, more heat in winter, more air conditioning in summer. Your utility bills didn't get the memo about your retirement. Your house is older. So are your appliances. So is your car. Things break. Things need replacing. And now you're on a fixed income when they do. Here's what I saw during my years working with retirees. The people who were stressed about money weren't the ones who had failed to save enough. Most of them had done a decent job saving. They were stressed because they underestimated what maintaining their lifestyle would actually cost once they weren't working. They planned for 75% of their pre-retirement income, but they were trying to live on what felt like 90% or 95% of their old lifestyle. The math didn't work, and the gap between what they had coming in and what was going out created constant anxiety. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Say you were earning $80,000 a year before retirement. The standard advice says you need $56,000 to $64,000 a year in retirement. That sounds reasonable until you actually map out your expenses. Your mortgage or rent is still $1,800 a month. That's $21,600 a year. Property taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, another $12,000 a year. Food, gas, car insurance, car maintenance, $15,000 a year. Healthcare costs, $6,000 a year. That's already $54,600, and we haven't covered phone bills, internet, clothing, personal care, gifts for family, occasional entertainment, or the inevitable unexpected expenses. You're not living extravagantly, you're living normally. And normal costs more than 70% of your old income. This is why the replacement ratio approach doesn't work. It's based on averages and assumptions that might not match your actual life. Maybe you paid off your mortgage before retiring. Great, that helps. But maybe you're still paying rent or still have a mortgage payment. Maybe your health is excellent and your costs are low. Or maybe you're managing diabetes and high blood pressure and your prescription costs are significant. Your lifestyle is specific to you. The cost of maintaining it is specific to you. And that cost doesn't care about what some retirement calculator said you'd need. Now here's what makes this even more challenging. Inflation. You've heard about inflation. You've seen it at the grocery store and the gas pump. But understanding inflation intellectually and experiencing it year after year in retirement are two very different things. Let's say you retire at 65 and you're planning for 30 years of retirement. If inflation averages just 3% a year, which is relatively modest, what costs $50,000 today will cost about $73,000 in 15 years and about $106,000 in 30 years. Your lifestyle isn't getting more extravagant. You're not suddenly buying luxury items. But maintaining the exact same lifestyle costs more than double what it costs today. And here's the brutal part. Most retirement income doesn't keep up with that. Social Security gets cost of living adjustments, which helps. But they're often smaller than the real inflation you experience in your daily life. Your pension, if you have one, might be fixed with no adjustments at all. Your portfolio withdrawals need to increase to keep pace, which means you're pulling more money out over time, which means your balance is depleting faster than you planned. This is what I call the lifestyle erosion trap. You don't suddenly become irresponsible with money. You just keep living your life, and slowly, gradually, the cost of that life increases while your purchasing power decreases. And if you're not actively planning for this, you end up making compromises you never wanted to make. You stop going to visit family as often because the travel costs feel too high. You delay medical procedures because the out-of-pocket costs are climbing. You cut back on the small things that made life enjoyable, the dinners out, the subscriptions, the little gifts for grandkids. You're not broke, but you're not comfortable either. And that's not the retirement you spent 40 years working toward. So what's the solution? How do you actually figure out what maintaining your lifestyle will cost? First, forget the replacement ratio formulas. They're not useless, but they're not precise enough to base your real planning on. Instead, do this. Track your actual spending for 3 months. Not what you think you spend, not what you should spend, what you actually spend. Every dollar, every transaction. Get the real number. Then look at that number and ask yourself, what changes when I retire? Some things drop. Commuting costs, work clothes, convenience spending because you're rushed. Add up those savings. Some things increase. Healthcare, home utility usage, leisure activities, travel to see family. Add up those increases. Some things stay exactly the same. Housing costs, insurance, basic food, car maintenance. Those don't change. Now you have a real number. That's what maintaining your lifestyle actually costs. Not 70%, not 80%. The actual dollar amount per month that reflects your real life. Here's what I found when I started doing this with real people instead of just running projections on spreadsheets. Most people underestimate by 15% to 25%. They forget about the irregular expenses, the annual insurance premiums, the property tax bills, the inevitable home repairs. They forget that they'll want to do things now that they have time. They forget that healthcare gets more expensive as they age, not less. The people who got this right didn't have some sophisticated financial strategy. They had an honest, detailed understanding of what their life actually cost to live. Once you have that real number, then you can work backwards. You can figure out if your Social Security plus your pension plus your portfolio withdrawals can actually cover it. And if there's a gap, you can make decisions now, while you still have options, rather than 5 years into retirement when you're already stressed and running low. Now let's talk about the psychological side of this, because it matters more than the spreadsheets do. Maintaining a lifestyle isn't just about the dollars. It's about identity. It's about dignity. It's about feeling like yourself. When you were working, spending money felt different. You had a paycheck coming in. You could justify purchases because you were earning. There was always next month's income to replenish what you spent. In retirement, every dollar you spend comes out of a finite pool. There's no next paycheck. There's just the balance that has to last for the rest of your life. And that changes how spending feels psychologically. I've watched retirees with $2 million in savings agonize over a $50 purchase. Not because they couldn't afford it, but because every purchase feels like it's coming directly out of their remaining years of financial security. This is what makes maintaining a lifestyle so hard. It's not just about having enough money. It's about having enough money to feel okay about spending it on the life you want to live. And here's what I learned that surprised me. The amount of money people needed to feel secure varied wildly based on their psychology, not just their expenses. Some people with $800,000 saved felt confident and comfortable. Others with $1.5 million felt anxious and uncertain. The difference wasn't the amount. It was whether they understood their expenses, had a clear withdrawal plan, and knew they had breathing room. The people who maintained their lifestyle successfully weren't the ones with the most money. They were the ones who had clarity about their numbers and confidence in their plan. Let me give you a framework that might help. Think about your retirement expenses in 3 categories. First, your foundation. These are the non-negotiable monthly costs: housing, utilities, food, insurance, basic health care. This is the amount you absolutely need every single month to function. For most people, this is 60% to 70% of their total spending. Second, your lifestyle. These are the things that make life enjoyable but aren't strictly necessary. Dining out, hobbies, travel, entertainment, gifts. This is usually 20% to 30% of spending. Third, your unexpected. This is the buffer for things that will happen, but you can't predict when. Home repairs, car replacement, medical procedures, helping family members. This is typically 10% to 15% of spending, but it's lumpy. Some years you need it, some years you don't. If your guaranteed income, Social Security plus any pension, covers your foundation, you're in decent shape. You might need to adjust your lifestyle spending, but you're not at risk of losing housing or healthcare. If your guaranteed income covers foundation plus some lifestyle, you're in good shape. You have security plus some enjoyment built in. If your guaranteed income doesn't even cover your foundation, you're entirely dependent on your portfolio, and that creates a different level of risk and stress. Most people I worked with fell into that second category. Social Security covered maybe 40% to 60% of their needs. The portfolio had to cover the rest. And that meant they needed to know exactly what the rest was and whether their portfolio could sustain those withdrawals for 30 years. Here's what a sustainable withdrawal looks like in practice. The old rule was 4% per year. If you had $1 million, you could withdraw $40,000 annually and probably be okay. Recent research suggests 3% to 3.5% is safer given longer lifespans and market volatility. But those are just starting points. What matters is whether your specific withdrawal rate can support your specific lifestyle costs over your specific time horizon. If you need $60,000 a year from your portfolio to maintain your lifestyle, you're looking at needing somewhere between $1.7 million and $2 million saved. That's the math using a 3% to 3.5% withdrawal rate. Don't have that much? Then something has to adjust. Either your lifestyle costs come down, or you work longer to save more, or you find additional income sources in retirement, or you accept a higher level of portfolio risk to support higher withdrawals, which comes with its own stress. This is why understanding the real cost of your lifestyle matters so much. Because once you know that number, everything else becomes clearer. You can see if your plan works. And if it doesn't, You can make changes now rather than hoping it somehow works out later. Let me talk about one more thing that most retirement planning completely ignores: the emotional cost of lifestyle compromises. Let's say you retire and you realize 6 months in that your spending is running 20% higher than you planned. You've got choices. You can cut back on expenses. You can increase your portfolio withdrawals and accept that your money might not last as long. Or you can find part-time work to bridge the gap. All of those choices come with emotional costs that don't show up on any financial projection. Cutting back means giving up things you enjoy. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's helping your grandkids with college. Maybe it's the weekly dinner out that you looked forward to. Those compromises affect your quality of life in ways that are hard to quantify, but impossible to ignore. Increasing withdrawals means living with more financial anxiety. Every market downturn hits harder because you're pulling more out. You're watching your balance drop faster. You're doing math in your head constantly about how long it'll last. Going back to work, even part-time, means your retirement doesn't feel like retirement anymore. You're trading time and energy for money again, which might be fine, but it's not what you planned for. None of these are wrong choices, but they're all compromises. And the people who ended up most satisfied in retirement were the ones who understood these trade-offs before they retired, not after. They built their lifestyle expectations around what was actually sustainable. They didn't retire hoping their spending would magically decrease by 30%. They didn't assume they'd be fine with major lifestyle cuts. They looked at their real costs, their real income, and made decisions with eyes open. Here's what that looks like practically. Before you retire, live on your projected retirement income for 6 months. Actually do it. If you're planning to live on $5,000 a month in retirement, live on $5,000 a month now while you're still working. See what that feels like. See what you have to cut. See if it's sustainable or if it makes you miserable. If it feels fine, great. You're ready. If it feels restrictive and stressful, you just learned something crucial. Either you need more income in retirement, or you need to seriously rethink your expectations about lifestyle. This simple exercise prevents more retirement disappointment than almost anything else, because it gives you real data about your real preferences before you've made an irreversible decision. I've seen people delay retirement by 2 years after doing this exercise, not because they couldn't technically afford to retire, but because they realized they couldn't afford to retire and maintain the life they wanted to live. Those 2 extra years of saving and Social Security growth made the difference between a comfortable retirement and a stressful one. I've also seen people retire earlier than planned after doing this. They realized they didn't need as much as they thought. Their lifestyle was simpler than they'd assumed. They were spending money on things they didn't actually value just because they had the income. Cutting back didn't feel like sacrifice. It felt like clarity. The point isn't to scare you or make retirement seem impossible. The point is to base your decisions on reality instead of assumptions, because maintaining a lifestyle after retirement is absolutely possible. But it requires knowing what that lifestyle actually costs and building a plan that supports it. Let me wrap this up with something practical you can do today. Take out a piece of paper or open a spreadsheet. List every single monthly expense you have. Everything. Then mark each one with one of 3 labels: stays the same in retirement, goes down in retirement, or goes up in retirement. Add up the stays the same category. That's your baseline. Add up the goes down category and subtract it from your current spending. Add up the goes up category and add it to your baseline. That's your real retirement lifestyle cost. That's the number you need to plan around, not some percentage of your income, not some calculator's estimate. Your actual number based on your actual life. Then compare that number to your projected retirement income. Social Security plus pension plus portfolio withdrawals. Does it work? Is there a comfortable margin? Or are you cutting it close? If the math works with room to spare, you're in excellent shape. You can maintain your lifestyle with confidence. If the math is tight but workable, you know you need to be disciplined. You can maintain your lifestyle, but there's not much room for error or expansion. If the math doesn't work, you've just discovered something crucial before it became a crisis. You have time to adjust. Save more. Work longer. Reduce expenses now. Find additional income sources. Make intentional choices rather than forced compromises. The people who thrive in retirement aren't the ones who had perfect circumstances. They're the ones who understood their reality clearly and planned accordingly. They knew what maintaining their lifestyle would actually cost, and they built their retirement around that truth rather than around hopeful assumptions. You can do the same thing. The information is available. The math isn't complicated. What's required is honesty with yourself about what your life costs and what you're willing to adjust if necessary. Your future self is counting on you to get this right. Not perfect, just right enough that you can live comfortably, sleep peacefully, and enjoy the retirement you worked decades to achieve. You've earned that. Now make sure your plan actually supports it.